So here we are in our customer's home. We're about to begin a treatment for bed bugs. The customer was gracious enough to allow us to bring the camera in, bring you guys along with us, and show you some of what we're about to do. So the most important part of the inspection actually begins with a thorough interview. Based on the questions that we ask a customer when we first get into the home, helps us determine, number one, are we actually dealing with bed bugs, or is there something else that we need to be looking for? So some of those questions that we're going to ask are things like, how many bites have we gotten? Where are the bites showing up on the body? How many people have been bit? How long has it been going on? So if a customer answers, where have the bites been showing up, and they've only been on the ankles below the knees, it might not be bed bugs. And the reason is, when bed bugs look for their food source, when they seek out a host, they find that host by the body heat that's given off and also carbon dioxide. And most of that takes place, obviously, on the upper torso. So when we're laying in bed, the exposed skin is going to be the first places that get bit by bed bugs. When a customer explains that the bites began on their arms, hands, face, neck, or any other exposed skin on the upper torso while they were sleeping, well, that's an indication that it could be bed bugs, and then we begin our inspection in that area in the bed. So the customer's already stripped this bed, and they're in the process of doing their bedding in the laundry. So the customer's already stripped the bed, and all the bedding is in the laundry, being washed on high heat and dried on high heat, trying to kill any of the life stages that might be in those materials. But generally, when we come out, the bed is made, and we're going to begin our inspection at the top half of the bed. So usually starts with the pillows, and we'll remove the pillowcases, and if we have bed bugs, any level of infestation, we may find what's called spotting, which is actually bed bug fecal material or blood spots on the seams and edges around the pillows. And in this case, we actually had that. Pillowcases are in the wash right now. On the bed, when we remove the sheets, the first areas that we're looking is along the seams and edges. And the reason they like to be in these areas is they feel protected. Cracks and crevices, creases, and those types of areas are the first areas that we're going to find them on the mattress. The reason that we're going to look at the mattress first is because, like most animals on the planet, or most insects on the planet, they want to be as close to their food source as possible. So within just a few feet of where their host is going to be, they're going to go ahead and start creating their infestation, or their pockets of infestation. Beyond that, as that infestation grows and spreads, they'll move from the mattress to the box spring, to the bed frame, the headboard, end tables, pictures on the walls, and furniture beyond. But the inspection is always going to start right here with the mattress. Based on the questions that we ask the customer, if we really feel like we have an infestation of bed bugs and we're not finding them here, we'll go beyond, typically lifting up the mattress, then lifting up the box spring, and getting into the actual frame of the bed to find them. All right, so this is the headboard part of the bed. We actually pulled it off, turned it around so we can get a good look at it and start our treatment. This is actually what we refer to as a cluster. So they started out in this area. All these little spots are fecal material. It's digested blood meal that's then released. The reason that you see a lot of the eggs around here is there's an aggregate pheromone in the female's fecal material, because that fecal material is going to be a food source for the first life stage once they hatch out of their eggs. So they're always going to be in a cluster like that. And what will happen is, in about 6 or 8 weeks from now, when those newly hatched eggs reach their reproductive stage, they'll find a new area to lay their eggs, so there's not as much competition for food. And then we end up with clusters moving out in other areas. All right, so we're going to begin our treatment here momentarily. Before we do, I want to talk a little bit about the different options for treatment. So what we're doing today is what we call localized treatment. We're actually going to do a couple of steps in this process. There's other forms of treatment, some of which I would recommend, some of which I'd only recommend in certain situations, So heat is one of those. Heat treatments definitely work. They work very, very well. But in a residential setting, I've actually seen some horror stories. You know, there's lots of different items in a residential home, and from one room to the next, or from one home to the next, you never know what items can take the level of heat that it's going to take to impact that population of bed bugs. Heat works really, really well in a controlled setting, such as hotel rooms. So every hotel room has the same items as the last room, and if they can all take the heat, then that treatment will work just fine. Another form of treatment that we recommend in some occasions is tenting, actually fumigating an entire home for bed bugs. And that comes into play, number one, if every room in the home is infested and the cost in doing the treatment with fumigation is less than what the cost would be in treating the whole home in the manner that we're about to treat this room. And the other reason we might recommend fumigation or tenting is if there's just so much clutter, so much stored items, so much furniture, in creating so many places for bed bugs to hide, and we might not have an effective localized treatment, in which case fumigation would definitely get them. The treatment that we're going to do today is going to have two steps. The first step is vacuuming, actually physically removing a large portion of the population, all the different life stages that are here, the nymphs, the adults, the eggs, remove everything that we could possibly see, and then do a treatment into those cracks and crevices, hiding places, and areas where they're harboring right now, and impact what's remaining. The treatment that the product that we're going to be using actually has two active ingredients. One is a contact kill, so anything that we treat will be affected by it. And two, it has what's called an IGR, or an insect growth regulator, which will help prevent the bed bugs from being able to molt or grow to the next life stage. The whole point, or the whole objective in killing a bed bug population, is to break that life cycle. If we could break the life cycle and they can't create future generations, then it's only a matter of time before the rest of them are wiped out. So Sean's going to begin the vacuuming portion of the treatment. He's going to be focusing obviously in all the areas where the bed bugs are, but he's also really going to be trying to get into the cracks and crevices. When these things feed and gorge themselves, they're going to try and find a hiding place to digest that meal, and then they don't come back out for like 3 to 5 days or so to look for another meal. So we really, really need to focus on all of their possible hiding places, and when we're doing the treatment, we got to do the same thing. So Sean's going to get started with that right now. So this is a really good example of how bed bugs hide in cracks and crevices. And believe it or not, most pest professionals miss things like this. Not to mention when we come in after homeowners have made a few attempts to correct the problem themselves, these are the types of things that get missed, and this is how they are able to continue, because if you don't get all these eggs, if you don't get all the live ones that are in there, that life cycle will not stop, and they'll just keep repopulating. So I'm going to go ahead and do a treatment right in here right now. Okay, here we are. Treatment's complete. Before we leave, we always make sure that the room is back together and everything is exactly where it was when we arrived. We got into every single crack and crevice, as you'll see through some of the pictures and videos that we had taken. Furniture was taken apart, drawers taken out, nightstands flipped over. So all that stuff is back in place. This bed is actually an adjustable bed, so we plugged it back in, make sure that it's working before we go, and now we schedule our follow-up in about 3 to 5 days, come back in, do a really thorough inspection and treat as needed.